This is a tutorial of Gaia project, a rather large, fairly in-depth game about colonizing various space colonies, performing actions, doing research, and trying to raise to more points than your opponents for certain objectives. And there's a lot to this game, a bunch of different parts. There's this kind of map area control type of game. There are research tracks that you go up that give you benefits. There's this action selection section that lets you do put out different types of structures and get benefits for doing such. And then there are these goals. The game is played over 6 rounds, and each round has specific goals, or sorry, specific benefits, meaning you get, or bonuses where you get points based on certain actions you do in that round. And then there are 2 overall game goals that will give points at the end of the game depending on how far along this track that you are. There are also upgrades and special powers based on factions and a whole bunch more. I'm going to do my best to go over all of the basic ideas. I'm certainly not going to cover every rule, and I will probably miss a few, but hopefully at the end you can have enough of an idea to start playing around on BGA with the game to get going. All right, so let's take a look. I'm going to take a look at our player boards in just a second. I'm going to reformat some things here to make it a little easier to see. Okay, just so you know, there's a bunch of different preferences here. Some of these preferences have to do with the specific faction that I'm viewing at this point, but some of them are overall like interface preferences. The one I chose here was the map layout. If I want to have a bigger view of the map and a bigger view of the research board, then you can put the research board below the map. Otherwise, it's next to it, so you can see more of the game at once. This is a map that represents a lot of different types of planets, and the different colors of planets match the colors of various players, or possible player colors. And if you are, for instance, the red player, then you can play on red. You can build on red planets for basically for free. A yellow player can build on yellow planets for free. There are some planets, if you want to build on another planet, it depends on what type of planet it is. And if we look at this board here, right, depending on how far away the planet is from this board. So if I'm red, I can build on blue and orange for not as much, but white, yellow are more expensive, and brown and black are the most expensive. So there's, depending on what color of the board it is, of the planet, depends on how hard it is to build and how much resource it takes to build on those planets. Then there are green planets and purple planets. The green planets are Gaia planets. Those anybody can build on, but once somebody's built on it, they kind of claim that one. The purple planets you have to turn into a Gaia planet first, and then it becomes like a green planet. And if you're the one that turns it into a green planet, you get claim over that. So that's some general ideas around building on here. You get certain benefits if you build next, if somebody builds next to one of your structures. If you build a bunch close to each other, you can form a federation. We'll get into that a little later. But overall, you're just trying to build out where you are in the various places and take advantage of the new planets that you can build from, building Gaia projects and federations as you can. This is the research board. As you go up the research board, you get benefits. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. And we're going to look at, these are player boards. They're a little hard to see, but this is a player board here for the Taklons. This is for the Terrans, the Hajhalas, and the Xenos. So there are 4 players here. And these player boards do several different things. One, it has your structures. These are the structures that you can build on the map. See, right now when you start out, you just got a few mines that you're building. but over time you can upgrade those mines to other types of structures that give you benefits. Now notice whenever you build a structure, it is removed from your board, and there are benefits underneath them. So whenever you see that benefit, you get that as soon as when you remove the building from that. Now sometimes if you're upgrading a building, you will change it out, and so it will come back on your board. So there's a bit of give and take there. There are a few symbols that are important to understand. Anytime you see a symbol of a hand underneath some sort of resource, and there are 4 different types of resources. There's iron, there is coin, like money, there's knowledge, and then there's power, which is this purple. Whenever you see a hand underneath that, that is your income. So at the beginning of every round, every one of those 6 rounds, anything that has a hand under it, you will get. So if I were the Tacklons here, I would be getting 3 ore, 1 knowledge. But if I'm able to take this one off, I would also get 3 credits as well. I think that's what they're called. Okay. The other main symbol that you want to look for is one where there is a star next to a resource, a little shiny piece on a resource. Whenever that exists, you get that. It's an instant thing that you get. So in this case, when I take this tech tile, I get 1 ore and 1 of these QIC cubes, which I'll explain later. Okay. Or as I go up this tree here, I would get 2 ore and plus some special ability. Whenever you see those stars here, it would give me some of the cubes. These give me Gaia formers, what they're called. But this, if I move up this track, this will give me stuff for income at the beginning. So it's important to recognize the difference between those two. The income that you start out with will be tracked up here. You can see everybody starts with basically the same income, 15 credits, 4 iron, 3 knowledge, and no QIC. But it will tell you what you're gaining as income currently. So it gives you that +3. So this is saying for me, currently my income is +3 iron and +1 knowledge. And as I uncover things or get new or go up tracks and things, those will show increase. All right, another core concept is this using power. This purple, these purple tokens here. As you can see, it's a little bit different, mostly the same here. You can see you have power in some power tokens here in this 2, some power tokens in this 1, and then eventually you get them in this 3, and that's when you can use them. So the only way that you can actually use power to perform actions, whenever you see this kind of power here, using a 4 to get something like that, or using 3 power to get an ore, whatever that might be, that means taking the power from 3 and putting them back into 1. And then you have to charge up that power again, and this power charges up in the cycle. 1, 2, then 3. So whenever you're charging a power, now notice these, when it's using a power, the arrow is pointing counterclockwise. But when you gain a power, so for instance, here, this gives you income that charges a power. So that gives you 2 income, or 2 charge as income. Then you move these in a circular pattern. And I believe that you always move from highest, it's from 2 to 3 and then from 1 to 2. Let me find that out for sure. Okay, the ordering for charging power is if you have any power in section 1, you always move those first to section 2, and then once everything is moved out of section 1 to section 2, then you move to section 3. And 3 is where you can spend the power again. Here are a bunch of other places you could spend power, for example, but there will be lots of different ways to spend that power. And again, once power is spent, it goes back to 1. There are ways to gain power. For instance, here, This thing, you can spend an ore to gain a power from the supply, and it adds into number 1. And there are ways to lose power. So for example, you can also charge a power whenever without triggering some sort of income or action that charges a power. However, you have to discard another power in order to charge one from 2 to 3. So you can see here, if you send one from 2 to 3, you have to get rid of one completely. And so you would have less power to work with in your pool here, or you can add it back later. Probably not the most efficient move, but if you just need that one extra power to do something really important, that's a way to do it. Okay, so we've talked about the building options, income, and immediate benefits, the power cycle and the way that you get power and spend power. There is also some various conversions we'll talk about. And then we have the research track. And the research track, you move up. Now we see some here people have moved up already. That's because they had special powers to do that in their specific faction that they chose, gave them that one already. But anybody can move up this track, and if you get to this either level 4, if you get to level 4, you can either take this track, this tech tile, or go to level 5 and take some major bonus up here if you use one of your Federation tokens, and we'll explain how to get those. But only one person can take each of these tech tiles, and only one person can be up at the top here. So everybody can gain benefits out of these, but only one person can gain the top benefit or these advanced tech tiles that will give you really good bonuses, but are hard to get to because you have to get all the way up to here. We can see some of these things that you're able to do. We understand some of these ideas. Like this one just increases your knowledge income, right? The amount of knowledge you get at the beginning of each phase. This one increases income for basically everything else, credits, ore, and power. This one you get things that help you do Gaia forming. We'll talk about that later. This one gives you QIC cubes, which help you also with Gaia forming, and a few other things. And this one helps you build farther and farther range. And this one helps you build in other planets without having to spend as much money, because it costs a lot more. Well, it costs quite a bit to build on planets you don't own, meaning basically terraforming them so that your faction can actually live on them. That gets cheaper and cheaper the more you go up this track. I won't go over all of these tech tiles, but these are just mostly advanced items based on those. Also, anytime you see one of these symbols here, those are victory points. These are tech tiles that you can get, and we'll talk about how to get those in a bit. You basically spend 4 knowledge to pick one of these tech tiles and move up the track. And these will give you various things, like this one gives you some immediate benefits. This one gives you income, and then they give you other things as well. This one, when you build on a Gaia planet, it gives you points, for example. And then here's other ones as well. This is when you build, you get immediately, for every type of planet that you have built on, you get a knowledge immediately. But that's kind of a one-time benefit. Down here are actions that you can take for power that give you various things. All these are immediate benefits, and some actions that you can take by using QIC codes. All of these have nice tooltips, so I'm not going to go over everything, but you can kind of see some of these benefits out here. Anytime you see a hexagon, that's kind of an action space that you can go to. All right, so let's go through the round structure. All right, so each round you get there's 6 rounds. there's first an income phase where you get all of the resources that you have hands around. And you should note that there are limits to your overall to the amount of resources that you can get. So you don't want to get too much at once because it will be limited. I believe the ore and the knowledge are limited at 15 and the credits are limited at 30. The other two are not limited. It's not really capable of getting too high on those anyway. You start out with 10 points. So the first thing you do is you get all of your income. Then in the second phase of the round, anything that's been terraformed on these purple planets will be handled. Those will turn into green planets that you can inhabit. Then on the phase 3, this is the big action, and this is a basically round robin taking actions of all different types until you pass. And there are lots of different actions that you can take, and then as soon as everybody passes, there's a cleanup, and then we move to the next round. All right, so let's talk about some of the actions you can do. I'm going to zoom in, or I'm going to change the layout here a little bit so that we can see more of the board a little bit easier. Also, by the way, each round you get one of these booster tiles, which gives you some sort of benefit. And since this gives you some income, it also gives you some, anytime you build on as soon as you pass, you gain a point for every Gaia planet you have colonized. And there's various other things. This one here gives you an action that lets you build with a range of 3 when you take that action. This one just gives you multiple income. So you'll have one of these to start, and that'll be some sort of benefit. And when you pass, you will flip it over, and then you will be able to choose a booster tile for the next round. So then it just starts going round robin, and you have various actions that you can take. All right, so let's go over what those actions can be. So first of all, you can build a mine. A mine, like I mentioned before, if it's on your own planet, is free. So if I'm red and I build a mine on a red planet, then that's all I do. I just take a mine from here and place it on the planet. You'll place a couple of planets out to begin with, and you do have to be within a range of that planet. Now, at the beginning, you can only build with the range of 1. Your navigation is 1. If you want to get beyond that, you would have to spend, I believe, a QIC. One of these QIC cubes will bump up your range to give you a +2 in your range. For now, it's 1, but as you get up this track, then your range can be more than that. Like I mentioned before, and it'll show in your faction. So let's see, let's take the blue here. Blue can obviously go on the blue for free, but if they want to go on white or red, it costs them 1 terraforming step, that little symbol right there. If they want to go on black or orange, 2 terraforming steps, and if they want to go brown or yellow, 3. Right? And again, it has to do with how far away you are from these in this kind of circle here. A terraforming step costs you a certain number of iron, right? So at the lowest level, it costs you 3 iron to build on. For a blue to build on a red or a white planet, it will cost them 3 iron. But as I go up this track, here now it only costs 2, and then eventually it only costs 1 to build on that, to build a mine on that. Okay, so you have range and you have terraforming costs depending on the type. You can start a Gaia project. Now, the Gaia projects, like I mentioned, are taking a purple and terraforming it to turn it into a green. And there's a cost to that. And the cost can get cheaper as you go up this track here. Now, first, when you're at this lower level, you just don't even have the ability to do it. Partly because you don't have any of these Gaia formers, right? You need one of these things. But as you go up the ability here, if you're at this level, which blue happens to be, they got this Gaia former, and they can use 6 power tokens to terraform a Gaia planet or a purple planet and turn it into green. And the way that works is they stick all of that's 6 tokens, they stick them in this green area, and then you can see this arrow here. The Terrans actually get to stick them in section 2 at the end, but typically during that second phase before the actions, all of those things would come back into your 1 section. So you would have temporarily not have access to them, but then the next round they would come back to you, and you'd be able to start using that power again. You don't lose the power tokens, but they do become unavailable for that round. So if you want to do that, it might be worth spending the power first if you can, and then using it in the Gaia projects. Here it costs 6, but as you move up this 4, 3, it becomes cheaper to do that. Alright, so like I said, you can start a Gaia project, which here, as you can see, you put a Gaia former on, you move the number of tokens into here, and then you basically claim that purple, and eventually you're able to turn it into a green. I believe using a QIC code, that's when you actually are able to build on those green. In fact, I believe you might need a QIC cube to build on any green planet. I will have to look that up. All right. Next action, you can upgrade your structures. So you can turn a mine into one of these, and it costs a certain amount of ore, and yeah, it costs a certain amount of ore. So in this case, it costs, and credits usually. This one to upgrade from here to here, so you can see there's the lines that kind of let you go from here to here. This one costs 2 ore and 6 credits unless it is next to another mine, I believe, and then it only costs 3. Let me check on that real quick. All right, this is correct. I have confirmed that if your mine is within 2 spaces of an opponent's structure, any structure, then it only costs 3 credits instead of 6. You can also upgrade it to a, let's see, you can, so the mine always goes to the trading station, and then the trading station can either go to the research lab or the Planetary Institute, and the research lab can then go into an academy, which give you some big bonuses there. Like this one, for instance, gives you an action where you're able to use one of your you just use this action to get a free QIC cube. Speaking of, I did confirm, anytime you want to build on a green planet, you do need a QIC cube to do so. All right, so these are the costs to do that, and you are able to do so. Now there is a way to get passive power income if people build next to you, and it's kind of complicated, but basically you see these kind of costs here. You look at, like, if I built a mine next to a person, then that person would be able to charge that many power by sacrificing victory points, right? So if it's just a mine, and this victory points equal to this value, this -1, right? So if somebody built a mine next to one of my mines, I can charge 1 power for free, because it's 1 victory point minus this one here, or -1. If I had one of these and somebody built next to it, then I could upgrade a power, but it would cost me 1 victory point. I think I would be able to upgrade 2 power for that. It's kind of complicated. You'll see how it is during the game, but it's basically this ability for when people build or upgrade next to you, you can get passive power upgrades. That's one way that you can get that. And then in fact, there's an auto charge here that asks, hey, automatically charge power based on, you know, like it might be worth it to always, you know, it's probably always worth it to pay no victory points to charge 1 power, but you can even automatically pay 1 victory point to charge 2 power if you want. Just so you don't have to always take that turn when somebody else builds. All right, other actions. You can form a federation. That's right, that's what these purples are for. The federation, if you can group a set of buildings within that equals up to 7 of these purple values, right? These are worth 3, these are worth 2, and these are worth 1. Group them in a contiguous group to equal 7, then you get one of these federation tokens, which are big points, and these are the things that allow you to go up to this top level on the research track. See that little thing right here means you flip one of those to use them. You still get the benefits of it, but you can also use it to get those really advanced tech tiles. Now, how do you may ask, well, how am I going to get 7 if I've got these blank spaces in between? To do that, you have to connect them with satellites. And to build a satellite, you would discard a power. So that means not just use a power, but actually get rid of a power completely. And again, there's ways to get power back, but that's how you build satellites. So you want to try to group them as close as possible, but as long as they're connected, they're all connected in a line, and they equal to 7, you can form a federation. And it's at least 7. It doesn't have to be 7. You will connect with as few satellites as possible, and once a federation is completed, you can't create a new federation right next to it. It has to be its own kind of separate thing. All right, another action you can do is to research. We talked about that a little bit, but it's basically you spend 4 knowledge to move up one of these tracks, and you get whatever benefit that is. And you also all right, I misspoke a bit earlier. When you spend 4 knowledge, you just move up the track. The tech tiles you get when you build or upgrade to one of these research labs. That's when you get these various tech tiles. And by the way, if you want one of these advanced tech tiles, you have to replace one of the ones that you have here. All right. Finally, there are various conversions that we talked about here. You can use power to get various things. You can use 4 power to use a QIC code. Here's where the QIC can be used to up your range for building by +2. You can also turn a QIC into an ores. All these various conversions. It's not the most efficient, but it's a good way to get things if you need, just need one more little thing. It's also a good way to get new powers as well. And then finally, whenever you have a special action, you can always use those, but you can only use them once per round. So like if I had this tech tile, I could just use that action as one of my actions and charge 4 power. Also on the research section of the board, all of these things are things that you can do during a round, but only one person gets to do them at a time. So if somebody takes this one, spends 4 power to gain 7 credits, nobody else gets to do that. And so some of these you might want to make sure you're getting before other people are, and these ones as well, but these are more expensive because they cost the QIC. All right, I know that's a lot. There are a lot of different actions that you go, and you just keep going. Various things you can do. In the real game, there's a nice player aid that shows all those actions. You might want to find something like that, or some kind of a player aid sheet that will help you remember all the different things that you can do. Also remember that whenever when you're in a round, there's certain things that are going to give you points, and so that might be some kind of goal that you want to do. For example, in this case, round 1, you get 2 points every time you advance the research area. So that might be something that you take advantage of this round instead of next round. This one you get a 5-point bonus when you upgrade to a building to a certain point, or when you upgrade here. There's various. These will be random each time. Also pay attention to these because these are nice points at the end, and these will explain what those are. All right. That's about it where I'm gonna with this tutorial, but there's a lot more to it, and you're gonna have to look at a lot of these tool tips to remember what these are, or just kind of play around. Fortunately, BGA lets you play around a bit without breaking the rules. But just as a review, these are the things that you're building, and when you remove something, it gains some sort of benefit underneath that. And you can hover over to kind of see what that benefit is. You go from left to right. Anything with a hand under that is what you get during the income phase. Anything with a star next to it, something that you get immediately. As you go up these research tracks, you gain various benefits. You're trying to build on your planets, you're trying to build on Gaia planets, you're trying to turn purple planets into Gaia planets so then you can build on them. If you want to build on other people's planets, it's going to cost you some iron to do, depending on what color it is. You do want to kind of group some planets or some different structures together, because if you can reach that number 7, 7 of these purple dots, you get a federation, which are big points, and help you get advanced tiles. And you just do this roundabout structure that will let you take actions until everybody's passed, and then you move on to the next round. I didn't really talk about every faction has its own special abilities. For example, the Terrans, when they move Gaia things out of it, they go to 2. They get 1 up on this track. And during the Gaia phase, when they move that number, however many they move out of that, they get some benefits as well. And so this one, you might want to focus on really terraforming those Gaia projects. This one has this fun little token here that counts as 3 power, and you can charge that and spend it all at once as 3. So, but you only have to charge it 1 time. This one, it's up on the track, but you can spend money here whenever you want to gain certain resources. This one lets you build 3 mines at the beginning instead of 2, puts you 1 up on the track, and you can form federations with a power of 6 instead of 7. I believe these are the 4 factions that are chosen for a beginner game automatically. There are 20 or so other total factions, and in a normal game you would draft and kind of choose those factions, and there's a way you can ban them as well. But for a beginner game, those are probably the 4 that you'll look at, and since they're fairly basic powers. All right. I hope this is helpful, gives you some of the basic ideas. I know it was long, but maybe it'll make sense, and we'll see how that goes.